Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a very interesting video. A lot of times people keep asking me कि मैंने मेरा बहुत अच्छा experience है. I've graduated from a great university, but you know what? When I apply for a job, my resume doesn't get shortlisted, and the answer is very simple. So ask them a question in return. I asked them that when you go for, say, a date, how do you dress up? And the answer is this. And I asked them that think about it. If the resume that you have shared with the recruiter, if that is how you had to get dressed, how would that look? And they usually don't have a reply. And the answer from my side is it would probably look something like this. So the next point that I tell them is that getting rejected in a job interview is not just about your qualification, your work experience, but it's also about how do you represent yourself in a job interview. Now, your resume is like your elevator pitch because that's all that a recruiter has to kind of see you, to look at your credentials, and also to realize whether you are probably the right candidate for this role or you're not, right? So a lot of people generally talk about what are some of the ways you could get shortlisted through your resume. But I think the larger question here is, what are some of the things which for sure will ensure that your resume will get rejected, right? So let's look at some of those reasons and talk about it. And then, as we go through the video, we'll also talk about some of the tips to make your resume better. So one of the first reasons why recruiters often reject a resume when they look at it is then they are not able to understand the content of it. Now, see, a recruiter doesn't have a lot of time to go through your resume to understand every word. The recruiter has hundreds and probably thousands of resumes to shortlist. So all the recruiter will give is probably like a 30, 45 seconds, and that's where you need to make a mark, right? So the mistake that people do often is they make the resume so complicated or so confusing and sometimes so boring that the recruiter would say, yeah, this doesn't look to be the right candidate for me. So one of the most important thing for us to do is to make sure that the resume is very, very crisp. It's very concise. The content is laid out very clearly. It's not confusing, and it's not boring. Okay. The next issue that I often see is that the content is very generic, which means that you have written very generic content about your skills. So, I've been a part of an organization doing blah, 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 blah. If that's something which, you really cannot make out that what is that specific skill set you have? What is that specific task that you do in your organization? The recruiter will never get confidence whether you can do that job or not. So you have to be extremely, extremely specific on what are the kind of things that you've done, what are the skills that you've gathered, and what is the value that you can add to their organization. Another issue that I often find in resumes when I see them is that they have either grammatical mistakes, they have spelling mistakes, they have formatting mistakes, they're long in sentences, you just can't make out what is written. And that is just a no go for shortlisting. You have to be really, really clear that your resume cannot have any mistakes. If you are not that strong in English, please use some tools, use free websites to kind of audit your resume content or kind of give it to your friends or family and ask them to review them for you. But you need to ensure that there are absolutely zero errors in them. The another problem that I often see is that the resume doesn't really help a recruiter decide whether the experience or the kind of work that the person has done so far is really matching the skill set that is required to do this job. And that's again coming back to the previous point that I said, that if your content is ambiguous, if your content is confusing, if your content is very generic, probably the recruiter will not be able to be confident. And you can take it for granted that a recruiter will never ever give the benefit of doubt to a candidate. I mean, a recruiter will always think in a very pessimistic manner. And, if he has even an iota of doubt, probably the recruiter will say that, no, you know what? I have better resumes. I have more resumes. I would rather go for them and kind of skip this resume that I have. So it's very critical, right? Now, now that we've covered that, what are some of the things that recruiters just don't appreciate, let's come to the point. what what are some of the things that the recruiters look into a resume? So the first part is your education, your projects, your work experience, your contact detail. Obviously, that's a given, because otherwise, you don't want a recruiter to struggle to find how to contact you. Now, when we talk about projects, work experience, uh, the way you need to structure that section is that, what did you do in that role? That's something which is very critical. So, what were some of your work streams? What were your projects? What were your responsibilities? I mean, you could like have said that, I I kind of created a rocket to go to space. But then what exactly were you doing as a part of that rocket creation? So you need to be very specific in your contribution to a work stream, to a project, to whatever you've written there. The other important part is that, what are some of the key skills that you've acquired? Now, how a recruiter will use this information is that the recruiter will think that, okay, this is the kind of project that the person has done. This is the domain in which the candidate is good. And this is the skill set that the candidate uh, has learned and acquired, and is probably now a master. So, the skill set and the domain, or the work stream kind of matches to what I need. And that's why this candidate can be a potential candidate for my organization. So that's how the things work in sync. So you have to be extremely clear that you have to mention your key skills that you've acquired. The other very important part is, how do you quantify, or how do you share the results that you deliver? Now, a lot of times I find that people write what are the things that they've done as a part of their project, but they just miss writing that what did they deliver. And that's again an incomplete information, because unless the recruiter knows that all that you've done, whether you were able to deliver, or what kind of scale did you deliver, it's very difficult for a recruiter to kind of take a decision whether you're the right candidate or not. So it's again important. Now, please ensure that you are giving the right uh, uh, weightage to the confidentiality, and there are ways to write things which are confidential. So if it's something is confidential, please don't write it, because otherwise you land it up into a very different problem. But figure out ways to write your contribution or your result. You could use an index number, you could use any other way that's acceptable in your organization. Another very important thing is, if you've got some recognition, some award, some appreciation, through say an external agency, or please to put that into your resume, because that will just kind of tell if your work was appreciated by somebody. So if you're writing that I did XYZ work stream, and I delivered so and so result, it will be absolutely great to just write a line that I was rewarded with see the CEO's award for this work stream. It just makes your resume stronger. And then at the end, if you've done some, if you've taken some additional responsibilities as a part of your charter, it will be absolutely great to mention that. So net to summarize, writing a resume is a very very simple thing. It's not a rocket science. All you need to remember is that it's like a 30 or 45-second speech that you're putting on paper. If your audience, which is the recruiter in this case, finds it boring, finds it confusing, finds it ambiguous, finds it generic, finds it grammatically incorrect, your chances of impressing the person and kind of getting a slot to then go into a face-to-face discussion, the probability of that will become like really, really low. So all you need to do is to be really strong in the narration of your life story. Resume is nothing but narration of your life story, of your experiences, of what you've done, where you failed, where you've succeeded, and then kind of put it into a paper in a very interesting manner, right? So it's just about making your audience like reading what you are writing about yourself, nothing else, right? So net summarizing, your resume should be clean. It should have a proper formatting that will help the recruiter read it properly. Your resume should not have any grammatical mistakes. It should not have any spelling mistakes. So please be very, very cautious on that. uh, each role, each work stream, each project that you've done should be extremely, extremely clearly laid out. People, when a recruiter kind of reads your project, the person should know what was that you've done, what is a specific skill set that you've learned, and so on and so forth that we've just discussed. If you want to, kind of revise it again, please go back into the video and go through it all over again. Use jargons only if they are universally acceptable. I would still suggest that don't use jargons unless it is required. It just makes it difficult for people to remember and comprehend that. And like I said before, make sure that your resume reads like a story. When you show your resume to people, they should say, "Oh, you know what? I loved reading this resume." The chances of your resume getting shortlisted, if people like your life story, will be absolutely brilliant. So that is all what I wanted to share as my experience of writing my own resumes, writing the resumes of my friends and family, and also as a recruiter who's shortlisted like probably hundreds and thousands of resumes so far. So if you like this video, please like, share, subscribe to this channel. I'll keep getting this content for you, which will be practically helpful for you in your personal life, in your professional life. And if you have any other questions, please do write a comment to this video. I will try and reply back to you. And Aditya Zuchi signing off. Let's see you next week. Bye bye.